The brass badge scraped wood as Deputy Crane kicked her out. Mari Cordero hit the street at high noon, hands bound with barbed wire, blood dripping into dust. Behind her, Garrett Whitmore stood in the land office doorway, holding a paper he called a confiscation notice. "Trespasser," he announced to the gathering crowd. "Mexican squatter on legal American property." 20 townspeople watched. Not one moved. The deputy's boot found her ribs twice. He ripped the leather pouch from around her neck, the one containing everything she had left, and threw it back to Whitmore. Mari crawled toward the mission church. Father Miguel tried to step forward. The deputy blocked him with a rifle barrel. On the horizon, smoke rose. Mesquite smoke. Her family's home burning. Mari clutched the bent branding iron she'd saved, MC mark still visible, and turned her face toward the desert. 3 miles to the only man who might not turn her away, if she didn't bleed out first. The first mile, Mari counted steps, 73 before her vision grayed. She went down hard, tasting copper and dirt. The barbed wire had cut deeper than she'd realized. Her wrists looked like butchered meat. She forced herself up, used the bent iron as a walking stick, dragging it through sand that held no mercy. Heat came off the ground in waves, turning the world liquid. Sweat stung every cut, mixed with blood, dripped onto stone that would hold no memory of her passing. A settler wagon sat abandoned beside the trail, the family she'd cooked for, gone. They'd watched Whitmore's men drag her away yesterday, watched them forge the eviction papers, watched them burn the only proof she'd ever existed on that land. Then they'd hitched their oxen and rolled west without a backward glance. Mari stopped beside the wagon's shadow, breathing hard. Her throat had closed to the width of a straw. The leather pouch was gone. Whitmore had her grandmother's sourdough starter now, 40 years of feeding and care. And the land grant. The original 1768 document that proved Cordero blood had claimed that valley before any American boot touched New Mexico soil. All of it, gone. She heard hoofbeats behind her, not coming closer, just following, keeping pace. The deputy, making sure she left for good, or making sure she died trying. Mari pushed off from the wagon. Her left boot had split, each step grinding sand into the wound. She'd stopped feeling her hands an hour ago. The wire had gone too deep, maybe to bone. But her legs still moved, and that bent branding iron still scraped the ground, and she could still see the windmill, Drummond's windmill. It appeared, then vanished. Heat shimmer or dying? She couldn't tell anymore. Mari fixed her eyes on where it had been and kept walking. The iron left a thin line in the dust behind her, a trail any fool could follow. Let them. Let Whitmore see where she went. Let him know she'd made it somewhere, even if that somewhere turned her away. The windmill appeared again, closer, real. Beyond it, a stone house, hand-built, solid. The kind of building a man makes when he's got no one to please but himself, and time means nothing. Corrals, empty in the heat. A barn, door open just enough to show darkness inside. No smoke from the chimney. Hadn't been any for months, probably. The whole place had the quiet of a man who'd forgotten how to live with noise. Mari's knees gave out at the bottom of the porch steps. She caught herself on the railing, pulled herself up one step. The iron clattered against wood. Everything in her screamed to stop, to just lie down right there and let the sun finish what Whitmore started. She raised her ruined hand and knocked. Blood smeared the door. Nothing. She knocked again, harder, leaving more red. Her voice came out broken. "Please, they beat me. I'm dying." Boot steps inside. Heavy. Slow. A man who didn't hurry because nothing had surprised him in years. The door opened. Silas Drummond stood 6'7", if he stood an inch, broad through the shoulders like a man built for labor. His face had seen 50-some years, most of them hard. Gray threaded his dark hair, his eyes were the color of winter sky, and they looked at her the way a man looks at a problem he didn't ask for and can't ignore. Behind him, the house was dark and spare. A table, a chair, one cup, the home of a man who'd stopped setting two place a long time ago. Mari tried to speak again. Nothing came. Her legs folded. Silas caught her before she hit the porch. His hands were careful, calloused, enormous. He lowered her down, his eyes moving over the wire, the cuts, the bent iron she still clutched. "MC Mark," he said. His voice had dust in it. "Cordero family." She nodded once. Hoofbeats, coming up the trail. Silas's jaw tightened. He looked past her toward the sound, then back at her face. Mari saw the calculation happen. The 10 years of quiet he'd built, the price of breaking it. Saw the moment he decided. He lifted her like she weighed nothing and carried her inside. The door swung shut behind them. She heard the bar drop into place. Through the window, the deputy's voice. "Drummond, you seen a Mexican woman come through here?" Silas set Mari on the bed in the corner, the only bed she realized, which meant he'd been sleeping in the barn, or not at all. He moved to the window, standing just out of sight line, rifle in hand. She hadn't seen him pick it up. "Drummond?" Deputy Crane called again. "Know you're in there? Saw smoke this morning." Silas didn't answer, just waited, still as stone. "That woman's a fugitive. Stole $200 from the land office. Mr. Whitmore's offering $50 for information." Mari's vision swam. $200. She'd never touched $200 in her life. The lie was so clean it barely left a mark. The deputy's horse shifted, leather creaked. "You're a good neighbor, Drummond. Hate to see you lose that status over some Mexican cook." Through the window, Mari could see the deputy's shadow. He sat his horse easy, one hand resting on his pistol. The brass badge on his chest caught sunlight, throwing it back sharp. Silas finally spoke. "Haven't seen anyone." "That's so." The deputy's voice carried a smile. "Well, if you do, you let me know. Mr. Whitmore takes theft serious, takes harboring serious too." "I'll remember that." "You do that?" The deputy paused. "By the way, that deed of yours, Whitmore mentioned it might need re-verification. County's been finding irregularities. A lot of old claims turning out to be questionable. You understand?" Silas's knuckles went white on the rifle. "Just saying," the deputy continued. "Man wants to keep his property, he cooperates. Man who doesn't—" The sentence hung there, unfinished. "You take care now, Drummond." The hoofbeats faded. Silas stayed at the window until the sound disappeared entirely, then longer. When he finally turned, his face was carved from something harder than the stone he'd built his house with. He set the rifle down and crossed to where Mari lay. She tried to sit up, everything tilted. "Easy." His hands steadied her. He had water ready. Held the cup while she drank. It tasted like iron and earth and mercy. "I'm sorry," she managed. "Didn't mean to bring trouble." Trouble was already here. He set the cup aside and began unwrapping the barbed wire from her wrists. His fingers were surprisingly gentle for their size. Just didn't know it yet. The wire had bitten through skin to muscle. Mari hissed as he worked it free. "That deputy," Silas said, not looking up, "mentioned your land claim, said Mexican grants don't count." "They don't, not anymore." Her voice tasted bitter. "Not in English courts." What about Spanish law?" She blinked at him. "Spanish law died with the treaty. 1848. Everything became American." Silas finished with the wire and moved to clean the wounds. He had whiskey and cloth, knew what he was doing. "You have papers? Proof of the grant?" "Had." Mari's throat closed. "In a leather pouch." Whitmore took it. "What else was in there?" "My grandmother's sourdough starter. 40 years old. She fed it every week of her life. Then my mother, then me." Tears came without permission. "Stupid to carry it, but it was all I had left of them." Silas wrapped her wrists in clean bandages. "Starter's not stupid. It's survival." He stood and crossed to a small chest by the far wall. When he returned, he held a folded paper, set it on the bed beside her. "My deed. Bought this land 6 years ago from Whitmore, back when he was just starting his operation. Paid $800, everything I had after the war." Mari looked at the document, saw the signature at the bottom. Her breath stopped. "What?" Silas asked. She pointed at the witness line. "J. Thatcher, notary." "So?" "J. Thatcher died in May 1870. I know, because my father's claim was witnessed by him. I went looking after Papa was killed, trying to find the original records. Thatcher was already dead." Silas took the paper, turned it over, read the date, April 1872, nearly 2 years after the notary's death. "That can't be right." Mari pushed herself up despite the pain, reached for the bent branding iron she'd carried 3 miles. "Look at this. MC Mark, my family's brand. Registered at the mission in 1768, same year as the land grant. Father Miguel has the original registry." She met Silas's eyes, saw understanding dawn there, and something worse, shame. "Your deed and my grant," she said quietly. "Both signed by a dead man. Whitmore didn't just steal my land, he stole yours too. You've been living on it for 6 years, thinking you bought it fair." Silas sat down hard on the chair. The only chair. He stared at the paper in his hands like it had grown teeth. $800, he said. "Everything I had." "My father died defending that land. I was 12, watched them beat him to death in front of our house." Mari's voice stayed level. Whitmore waited 2 years, then showed up with papers saying the land was abandoned. Had a judge sign off on it, a judge who owed him money. How many? Silas asked. What? How many other families? How many other deeds with Thatcher's name? Mari shook her head. I don't know, but I heard talk. 7 properties this year alone. Always the same story. Mexican families, old Spanish grants, suddenly worthless. Silas stood, paced to the window. His shoulders filled the frame. Outside, the sun hammered down on land he'd thought was his, on corrals he'd built, on a windmill he'd raised by hand. We're both victims, Mari said, and we're both out of options. Silas turned. Not quite. Someone knows we're talking, someone who can help. Who? The priest, Father Miguel. Silas reached for his hat. And we're going to need him tonight. Dark came fast in the desert. 1 minute the sun burned red on the horizon, the next, stars pressed down like witnesses. Silas had left Mari resting, slipped out through the barn with instructions she didn't argue with. Stay quiet, stay hidden, don't light a lamp. She lay in his bed, the only bed, and smelled old leather, wood smoke, coffee that had steeped too long, the smell of a man who'd forgotten how to live for anyone but himself. On the small table beside her, she found a tin cup, a Bible with a woman's name written inside the cover, and a photograph. Silas, younger, standing beside a dark-haired woman with kind eyes. The woman's grave was out back. Mari had seen it through the window, a simple wooden cross, hand-carved, weathered gray. She understood the silence now, the single chair, the way he'd built this place for 2 and lived in it alone. Hoofbeats brought her upright despite the pain, but these were different, unhurried, accompanied by the soft jingle of a bridle that needed mending. The door opened carefully. Mari? Father Miguel's voice, low and urgent. It's safe. Silas is with me. She made it to the doorway as they entered. Father Miguel looked older in the lamplight Silas finally lit. 70 if he was a day, his white hair thinning, his hands gnarled from decades of mission work. But his eyes were sharp, and he carried a leather satchel like a man on a mission. Dios mío, he breathed, seeing her bandaged wrists. I heard what happened. The whole town heard. No one spoke up. They never do, Mari said. No, they don't. Shame crossed his weathered face. He set his satchel on the table and pulled out a small bottle. Salve. Better than whiskey. My mother's recipe grows on the mission wall. While he tended her wounds, Silas showed him both deeds. The priest put on wire spectacles, held each paper close to the lamp, studied the signatures. J. Thatcher, he said finally. I buried him myself, 8 years ago come autumn. He was a good man, kept honest records. It broke his heart what was happening to the Mexican families, but he couldn't stop it. The courts were already changing, English only. How many deeds has Whitmore filed using Thatcher's name? Silas asked. Father Miguel removed his spectacles, cleaned them on his sleeve. I don't know the exact number, but I hear confessions, Silas. I hear what men say when they think God's the only one listening. Enough to know this valley's been stolen piece by piece. Can you prove it? Perhaps. The priest reached into his satchel again, this time pulling out a leather-bound book so old the cover had gone soft. Mission Registry. Every land grant witnessed at San Rafael since 1703. Births, deaths, marriages, property transfers, all recorded. Your grandmother's grant is here. Mari, I looked this afternoon. 1768, 640 acres. Cordero family, MC brand registered the same day. He opened the book carefully, showed her the entry. The Spanish script was faded but clear, her grandmother's name, her great-grandfather's signature. Mari touched the page, felt the weight of generations in that ink. Spanish law, Father Miguel continued, recognized land grants as permanent family property. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was supposed to honor them, but he gestured toward the window, toward the valley beyond. English courts don't read Spanish. Convenient for men like Whitmore. So the registry doesn't matter, Silas said. Not in court? In an American court, no. The priest smiled, thin and sharp. But there's older law still on the books, Spanish land law. It allows ceremonial transfers witnessed by the church. Doesn't require American court approval, just needs a public record and community witnesses. Mari looked between them. I don't understand. You can't reclaim the land from Whitmore. He's got the American deed, forged or not, but Silas can transfer his claim to you, publicly, using the old Spanish ceremony, with the mission registry as proof that your family had prior right. That's not, Mari started. It's legal, Father Miguel interrupted gently. Barely. The treaty preserved Spanish property law for existing grants. If the ceremony is witnessed publicly and recorded in mission registry, it creates a legal claim that supersedes the American deed, not because it's newer, but because it's older. Silas paced to the window. What would I have to transfer? Everything. The land, the buildings, the cattle, all 40 head. Complete transfer to the Cordero family, represented by Mari, witnessed by the congregation. Father Miguel's voice softened. It means you'd own nothing, Silas. You'd be giving up 6 years of work, $800, everything you built. The silence stretched. Outside, a coyote called, thin and lonesome. When? Silas asked. Sunday, dawn, 3 days from now. I'll announce it at Saturday Mass. Everyone must witness for it to be valid. Mexican families, Anglo settlers, everyone. Mari found her voice. You don't have to do this. It's not your fight. Silas turned from the window. Yes, it is. I've been living on stolen land for 6 years. Didn't know it, but ignorance doesn't make it right. He looked at Father Miguel. This ceremony, it's binding? Legally and morally. Once recorded, Whitmore can't touch it without invalidating every Spanish grant in the territory. The court in Santa Fe won't risk that precedent. Then we do it Sunday. Father Miguel nodded. I'll prepare the documents. Mari, you'll need to be strong enough to stand for the ceremony. Can you manage that? She looked at her bandaged wrists, felt the fever still burning beneath her skin. I'll manage. The priest gathered his things. At the door, he paused. Whitmore will try to stop this. Once he hears, and he will hear, someone always talks. Be ready. After he left, Mari sat in the growing darkness. Silas remained at the window, watching the night. Why? She asked finally. Because a man who builds on stolen ground doesn't own anything worth keeping. Saturday morning came with heat that made yesterday feel like mercy. Mari woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Silas working outside, hammer on wood, steady and rhythmic. She made it to the door, saw him repairing fence posts that didn't need repairing, keeping his hands busy, keeping his mind from what he was about to lose. By afternoon, word had spread. Father Miguel had announced the ceremony at noon Mass, careful and formal. A land transfer under Spanish law witnessed by the congregation recorded in mission registry. Some folks understood what it meant, most didn't, but everyone knew Garrett Whitmore wouldn't like it. The town meeting started at 4. Silas had warned her to stay hidden, but Mari watched from the ridge above San Rafael, lying flat in the sage, fighting the fever that came and went like tides. She could see the square, the people gathering, 50, maybe 60 souls. More than lived in town. Ranchers had come in, drawn by curiosity or concern. Whitmore stood on the church steps like he owned them. Deputy Crane beside him, brass badge catching the late sun. 2 other men Mari didn't recognize flanked them, both wearing tied-down holsters. Hired guns, probably from Santa Fe. Appreciate you all coming, Whitmore began. His voice carried. He'd practiced this. We got a situation needs addressing. Property security. Some of you heard Father Miguel talking about a land ceremony tomorrow. Spanish law, he called it. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Now, I respect the father. Good man, does good work. But this valley operates under American law now. Has since '48. Spanish grants are history, and that's as it should be. We can't have folks digging up old claims every time they want something that ain't theirs. What about claims signed by dead men? Dutch Kellerman's voice cut through. The blacksmith stood near the back, hammer still on his belt from work. That American law, too? Whitmore's smile thinned. Careful, Dutch. Man throws accusations, he better have proof. I'm just asking. Seems like a lot of deeds getting filed lately. Lots of Mexican families losing land they've held for generations. Through legal process. Court-approved transfers. Everything documented and proper. By who? Someone else called. Mari couldn't see the speaker. What notary? That's county business, not town gossip. Whitmore shifted his weight. Point is, we got order here. We got laws. Drummond's land was purchased fair. I sold it to him myself, got the papers to prove it. This ceremony, Father Miguel's planning? It's theater, don't mean nothing legally? Dutch took 2 steps forward. Then why call a meeting? Why bring hired guns if it don't mean nothing? The crowd noticed the 2 strangers then, noticed their guns. The murmuring grew louder. Just precautions. Whitmore said smoothly. We've had trouble with drifters lately. Man's got a right to protection. He raised his voice. Here's what I'm proposing, fair and simple. The valley needs better water management with this drought. Whitmore Ranch has 3 wells, but some properties, his eyes swept the crowd, got just 1. That's not sustainable. I'm suggesting an ordinance. All wells get shared during water shortage. Democratic. Helps everyone. Mari felt cold despite the heat. She understood now. Silas's well was the only reliable water source for 10 miles. If Whitmore could force access, he'd control it. And if Silas resisted, Whitmore would have legal grounds to confiscate the property for public need. That include your wells? Dutch asked. Or just everyone else's? My wells are already supporting my operation. Can't spare the water. But Drummond's well is underutilized. 1 man, 40 head of cattle. That well could serve 3 times that number. Or you could, Dutch said, voice flat. That's what this is about. You want Drummond's land same way you took the Cordero place, the Martinez place, That's enough. Deputy Crane's hand dropped to his pistol. Dutch, you're out of line. The blacksmith didn't move. Behind him, 4 other men shifted forward, his sons, Mari realized, and 2 ranch hands, none armed, but all built like they knew how to use their hands. Father Miguel appeared in the church doorway. Gentlemen, this is holy ground. We settle disputes with words here, not threats. Whitmore smiled at him. Of course, Father, just having a discussion about legal matters, which is why I should mention this ceremony you're planning. I filed a complaint with the territorial court. Judge Morrison will be reviewing it Monday. If you proceed tomorrow, you'll be in contempt. Judge Morrison, Father Miguel said quietly, who owes you $800 for cattle he can't pay for? The crowd went silent. Whitmore's smile turned to stone. That's a private business matter. Like the notary signatures, like the deed transfers. Father Miguel descended the steps slowly, each word measured. Garrett, I've kept my peace for years, heard confessions, held my tongue, but theft is theft, whether it wears a badge or carries papers. You calling me a thief, Father? I'm saying a man with 50 properties acquired in 8 years might bear scrutiny, especially when the notary who witnessed most of them has been dead that entire time. The crowd erupted. Voices overlapping, questions shouted. Mari saw Anglo settlers arguing with each other, Mexican families watching in wary hope, merchants calculating which side offered better business. Deputy Crane drew his pistol, fired once into the air, silence crashed down. Meeting's over, Whitmore said. His voice had lost its smoothness. Father, you proceed with that ceremony, you're breaking territorial law. Drummond, you participate, you'll lose everything, and I mean everything. The rest of you stay out of business that ain't yours. He turned and strode toward the land office, the 2 hired guns following. Deputy Crane lingered, eyes on Dutch, then on Father Miguel. For what it's worth, the deputy said quietly. I got family too, Mexican family, on my mother's side. Lost their land 5 years back. He holstered his pistol. But I got a badge, and bills, and Whitmore pays on time. He walked away. Dutch spat in the dust. Coward. Father Miguel laid a hand on his shoulder. No. Just practical. That's what Whitmore counts on. Good men being practical. Mari slid backward down the ridge, her strength gone. Made it to where Silas waited with the horses, 20 yards back. He took one look at her face and helped her mount. They rode in silence until the ranch appeared. At the well, Silas stopped. Drew a bucket. The rope came up wrong, too light. He pulled it up. The water in the bucket was cloudy, gray, smelled like lye and death. When? Mari asked. Last night, while we slept. Silas dumped the bucket. He poisoned it. They walked to the cattle pen. 6 cows lay dead, bloated in the heat. 12 more were sick, trembling, foam at their mouths. Silas stood very still. Mari watched his hands clench and unclench. How much water do we have? She asked. 3 days, maybe, if we stretch it. If we don't use any for washing, cooking, just the cattle and us. And the ceremony's tomorrow. Yes. Mari looked at the dead cattle, at the poisoned well, at Silas's face, carved from something harder than stone now. He'll kill us, she said. If the drought doesn't, Whitmore will. We've got 3 days of water, a deed signed by a dead man, and a town too scared to help. Silas finally met her eyes. So we make those 3 days count. Behind them, smoke rose on the horizon. Someone else's property burning. someone else learning what it cost to stand against Garrett Whitmore. Sunday came before they were ready. Dawnlight crept across the valley, turning everything the color of old blood. Mari woke to the sound of Silas working outside again. That same steady rhythm, hammer on iron now instead of wood. She found him at the forge behind the barn, a small fire burning despite the heat to come. The bent branding iron lay across his anvil, the MC mark still visible through the damage. "Thought you might want this straightened," he said without looking up. "For the ceremony." Mari watched him work. Each strike of the hammer precise, careful, reshaping what Whitmore's men had tried to destroy. When he finally held it up, the iron was straight again, the MC mark clean and clear. "My father made this," she said. 1851, year I was born. He said every Cordero should know the weight of it, the responsibility. Silas plunged the iron into water. Steam hissed up between them. "What happened to him?" "Whitmore's men. Not Whitmore himself. He keeps his hands clean, but his men. They came with papers, said the land was forfeit. Papa refused to leave. They beat him in front of our house, while my mother screamed and I watched from the window. I was 12. She took the cooled iron from him, felt its weight. Mama lasted 2 more years. Grief killed her slower than the beating killed him. I went to my aunt's in Santa Fe, learned to cook, stayed quiet. Thought if I made myself small enough, Whitmore would forget the Corderos existed. But you came back. Wagon train needed a cook. Route passed through the valley. I wanted to see the land one more time before heading to California." She met his eyes. "Stupid." "No, brave." Silas wiped his hands on his leather apron. "You ready for what comes next? Teaching me to use this?" She held up the iron. "If you're going to claim your family's land, you ought to know how to mark it." They spent the next hour at the cattle pen. The healthy animals, 34 head now after the poisoning, milled nervously. Silas showed her how to heat the iron properly, how to hold it steady, how to press just long enough to burn clean without charring deep. "Your father did this?" he asked. "Every spring, made it a ceremony. The whole family would help. Mama would cook, my brothers would rope, Papa would brand. Said it was more than marking property, it was marking family. Continuity." "Your brothers?" "Dead. Cholera. 1856. Just me left now." Silas handed her the iron, heated orange. "Then you brand for all of them." Her hand shook. Not from weakness, the fever had broken in the night, but from memory. The last time she'd held hot iron near her skin, it had been Deputy Crane's doing, threatening, terrorizing. "I can't." "Yes, you can." Silas guided her hand to the practice board he'd set up. "This heat belongs to you now, not them." Mari pressed the iron down, held it. The wood smoked, the MC mark burned black and clean. She pulled it back and stared at what she'd made. "Again," Silas said. She burned 5 more practice marks, each one steadier than the last. Then Silas brought forward a yearling calf, held it still, and nodded. Mari placed the iron against the hide. The calf bawled once, then settled. The smell of burning hair filled her nose, acrid, bitter, familiar from childhood. When she pulled the iron away, the MC mark stood proud on the animal's flank. "There," Silas said quietly. "You just claimed your first head of cattle." Something broke loose in Mari's chest. She set the iron down carefully and wiped her eyes on her sleeve. "Thank you, for this, for all of it." "Don't thank me yet. Whitmore knows what we're planning. He'll be there this morning." "I know." "He'll try to stop it. Legal threats, probably. Maybe worse." "I know that too." Silas pulled something from his pocket, a silver cross on a thin chain. Simple, worn smooth from years of handling. "My wife's. She wore it every day we were married, 10 years now since I buried her. Been carrying it around like it might bring her back." He held it out to Mari. "Figure it's time it meant something again. Time I stopped living like a dead man." Mari took the cross. The silver was warm from his pocket. "Silas, I can't." "You can. You're family now. Only family I got left." He turned back to the forge, voice rough. "Ceremony starts at dawn. Father Miguel wants everyone there when the sun breaks. Says it's tradition. Old Spanish law required daylight witnesses, no shadows, no secrets." "Oh, how long do we have?" Silas checked the sky. Hour, maybe less. They worked in silence after that, loaded the healthy cattle into a makeshift pen on wheels, something Silas had rigged overnight, hitched his 2 strongest horses, gathered the documents, his deed, Father Miguel's mission registry copy, the straightened branding iron. Mari fastened the cross around her neck, felt its weight settle against her chest. right over her heart. "Ready?" Silas asked. She looked at him, this giant of a man who'd chosen principle over property, chosen her over his own survival. "No, but let's go anyway." They started toward town as the first edge of sun touched the mountains. San Rafael's main street was empty. Wrong kind of empty. Not sleeping, but holding its breath. Mari felt eyes behind every curtain, saw shadows move in doorways that stayed closed. The town knew what was coming. Nobody wanted to be seen choosing sides until they knew which side would win. They drove the cattle through to the mission square. Father Miguel waited on the church steps, the ancient registry book open on a small table he'd set up. Dutch Kellerman stood beside him, hammer on his belt like always. His 4 sons flanked the square's corners, not armed but present. A statement. 15 Mexican families clustered near the mission wall, silent, watchful. Most wore their church clothes despite the early hour. This was ceremony, and ceremony demanded respect. The Anglo settlers numbered more, maybe 30, but they hung back by the general store, uncertain. A few Mari recognized, the schoolteacher, the sutler's wife, 2 ranchers who'd been at yesterday's meeting. Good people, probably, just scared. No sign of Whitmore yet. Silas positioned the cattle in front of the church. Mari helped him set up the branding fire. Mesquite wood, carefully stacked. Father Miguel had explained the symbolism. Mesquite burns slow and hot, never gives up, survives drought, like the families who'd held this land before America came. Dutch brought coals from his forge in an iron pot. The wood caught, smoke rising pale against the brightening sky. "We're missing witnesses," Father Miguel said quietly. "For the transfer to hold legal weight, we need at least 30 signatures, congregation members from both communities." Mari counted heads, maybe 25 total who looked willing to step forward. Not enough. "Give them time," Dutch said. "Sun's barely up. Some folks need courage to find them first." Hoofbeats from the west. Everyone turned. Garrett Whitmore rode in flanked by his 2 hired guns and Deputy Crane. They pulled up at the edge of the square, horses blowing hard. They'd ridden fast. Whitmore dismounted, brushed dust from his coat, moved toward Father Miguel with the easy confidence of a man who'd never lost a fight that mattered. "Father," he said pleasantly, "didn't think you'd actually go through with this. Spanish land law is still valid under the treaty, Garrett. You know that." "Spanish law." Whitmore smiled. "For Spanish citizens. Murray Cordero's American now. Has been since the treaty. Can't claim rights under a government that doesn't exist anymore." Father Miguel opened the registry to a marked page. Her family claimed this land under Spanish law in 1768. The treaty preserved all existing grants, existing meaning established before 1848, which this was, by 80 years. According to your book, not according to territorial records. According to Mission Registry, which has legal standing as a historical document, the court in Santa Fe has honored mission records in 3 previous cases. Whitmore's smile hardened. Those cases didn't involve property already sold and occupied. Drummond bought that land fair, paid me $800, got the deed to prove it. You can't just undo a legal transaction because some old book says different. I can, if the original transaction was fraudulent." Father Miguel's voice stayed level, but his eyes were steel. "Jay Thatcher didn't witness your sale to Silas. Jay Thatcher was dead 2 years by then. You forged his signature." The square went deadly quiet. Whitmore's hand moved toward his coat pocket. Dutch's hammer came off his belt in one smooth motion. The hired guns shifted, hands dropping toward their holsters. Deputy Crane put himself between them and Dutch, hands raised. "Easy," the deputy said. "Everyone easy." "That's a serious accusation, Father." Whitmore's voice had lost its pleasantness. "One you better be able to prove." "I can." Dutch stepped forward. From inside his shirt, he pulled a leather ledger, set it on the table beside the registry. "Found this in the land office last night, after hours. Hope you don't mind." Whitmore's face went white. "You broke into—" Door was open. Must have forgot to lock it. Dutch opened the ledger to a marked page. "Funny thing, 53 deeds in here, all witnessed by Jay Thatcher, all dated after May 1870. Which is interesting, seeing as how Father Miguel buried Thatcher in May 1870, and we got the death certificate to prove it." Mari watched the crowd, saw understanding spread like fire, saw Mexican families straighten, saw Anglo settlers start to murmur, saw the schoolteacher's hand go to her mouth. "That ledger's private business records," Whitmore said tightly. "You got no right." 53 families, Father Miguel interrupted. "The Martinez place. the Cordero land, the Chen property down by the river, the Henderson Ranch, every single one witnessed by a dead man, every single one transferred to you. Legal transfers, court approved, by Judge Morrison, who owes you $800. Dutch tapped the ledger. Says so right here. Loan extended March 77, due March 78, ain't been paid, and right next to it, Morrison's signature on 7 deed transfers, all in the last year. The crowd noise grew louder. Mari saw faces changing, saw anger replacing fear, saw the moment the town stopped being afraid of Garrett Whitmore and started being furious at him. "This is harassment," Whitmore snapped. "Deputy, arrest these men. Theft of private property, defamation." "No," Deputy Crane said. Everyone looked at him. The deputy's jaw was tight, his hand still well away from his gun. "I got a badge. I follow the law, but I ain't following this. Not anymore." He unpinned the brass badge from his shirt, held it up so everyone could see, the same badge that had scraped the land office door when he kicked Mari into the street. Then he threw it at Whitmore's feet. "Find yourself another lapdog." The deputy walked away, just turned his back on Whitmore and walked toward Dutch, toward the mission, toward the side that didn't require him to be a coward anymore. Whitmore stared at the badge in the dust. For the first time since Mari had known his name, he looked uncertain. "This doesn't change anything," he said, but his voice had lost its edge. "Those deeds are filed, recorded, legal, until a court says different. Then let's make a record a court can't ignore." Father Miguel gestured to the registry, the ledger, the growing crowd. "These witnesses, this evidence, publicly documented, witnessed by the congregation. Every person here signs his testimony. By noon, copies go to Santa Fe, to the territorial governor, to every newspaper between here and Denver. You'd destroy this town's economy. My ranch employs 30 men. My land sales brought in new settlers, new business. Built on theft," Dutch said flatly. "Built on families losing everything, my wife's family, the deputy's family. How many more are you planning to rob before someone stopped you?" Whitmore's hired guns shifted nervously. They'd been paid for intimidation, maybe violence, not for standing against an angry town with evidence. "You men want to earn your money," Dutch called to them. "Step forward, but know this valley remembers, and we got long memories." The two guns looked at each other, looked at Whitmore, looked at the 50-plus people now filling the square, more arriving every minute as word spread. They turned their horses and rode out. Whitmore stood alone. For a long moment he seemed to shrink, the confidence that had always armored him cracking like drought-split earth. Then his eyes found Mari. "This is your fault," he said. "You came back. Should have stayed gone. Should have died in that desert." "But I didn't," Mari said, her voice carried in the morning stillness. "And neither did my family's claim. Neither did the Corderos. You tried to erase us with forged papers and violence. Didn't work." "You think this ceremony means anything? You think some old Spanish law protects you?" Whitmore's voice rose. "I'll have lawyers from Santa Fe here by Wednesday. Real lawyers. They'll tear your claim apart, and Father Miguel's registry and every signature here. You'll be on the street by October." "Maybe," Silas said. He'd been quiet until now, standing beside the branding fire, one hand on the iron heating in the coals. "But that's October. This is August. And right now, we got something you don't." "What's that?" "The truth, in daylight, with witnesses." Silas lifted the iron, the MC mark glowing orange. "And 3 days of water left, which means we got nothing left to lose." He looked at Mari. "You ready?" She nodded. Silas called out to the crowd. "Folks, what you're about to see is a property transfer under Spanish land law. Article 7 of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo preserves all Spanish land grants made before 1848. The Cordero grant was made in 1768. It's registered in the Mission Archive. It predates every American claim in this valley by 80 years. He gestured to the cattle. "I'm transferring these 40 head, along with my land rights, to Maribel Cordero, witnessed by this congregation, recorded in Mission Registry, legal under territorial and federal law. Anyone disputes it, they're disputing the treaty. Anyone stops it, they're breaking the law. Not us, them." Whitmore started forward. Dutch and 3 of his sons blocked him. "You're making a mistake, Drummond," Whitmore hissed. "That land is yours. You paid for it. You built on it. You're throwing away 6 years for a woman you met 3 days ago. 5 days, Silas corrected. "And I'm not throwing it away. I'm giving it back. Big difference." He turned to Father Miguel. "We ready, Father?" The priest opened the registry to a blank page, dipped his pen. We are. Under Spanish law, this ceremony requires 3 declarations. First from the one who transfers, second from the one who receives, third from the witness of record. Silas Drummond, do you freely transfer all property rights, land, buildings, cattle, and water access to Maribel Cordero, recognizing her family's prior claim under the Spanish land grant of 1768? Silas didn't hesitate. I do. Maribel Cordero, do you accept this transfer and reclaim your family's land under Spanish law and the protection of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo? I do. Mari's voice shook but held. Then as witness of record and keeper of the mission registry, I declare this transfer valid and binding. Let all present bear witness. Father Miguel wrote quickly in the registry, his script clear and precise. Date, names, legal reference. Then he turned the book around. All who witness this, step forward and sign. Dutch came first, signed his name in bold letters, then his 4 sons. The former deputy signed next, Raymond Crane, written carefully like a man reclaiming his own name. The schoolteacher, the sutler's wife, the 15 Mexican families, some signing with X's, some in Spanish script, some in careful English. The Anglo settlers hesitated. Mari watched them calculate. Whitmore's power against their conscience. Economic survival against what was right. Then an old rancher stepped forward. Name's Henderson. Lost my north section to Whitmore 3 years back. Didn't fight it then, fighting it now. He signed. That broke the dam. 20 more signatures, 30, 35, more than enough for legal standing. Whitmore watched his empire crumble in ink and witness. You're all fools, he said. This won't stand. I'll have it overturned by judges you own? Father Miguel asked. With lawyers you pay? Perhaps. But every person here signed, and every signature goes on record today. You want to fight this, you fight all of us. In public, with evidence. He gestured to Dutch's ledger. 53 forged deeds, Garrett. 53 families. You really want to explain that to a territorial court? To federal investigators? Because I promise you, those copies are getting made. And mailed. Today. Whitmore's face had gone from white to red. My ranch employs this town. My money built half these businesses. You destroy me, you destroy yourselves. Maybe, Dutch said, but we'll do it free, not stolen. The sun had fully broken now, flooding the square with light, no shadows left to hide in. Father Miguel closed the registry. The ceremony is complete, the transfer is recorded, the land returns to the Cordero family, represented by Maribel Cordero, this 15th day of August, 1878. Silas handed Mari the branding iron. Your land, your cattle, your mark. Mari took the iron, felt its weight, the same weight her father had carried, her grandfather before him. She walked to the first cow, a strong, healthy heifer, pressed the iron to its hide, held steady while the MC mark burned clean. The smell of mesquite smoke and burning hair filled the square, the smell of reclamation, of justice witnessed. She branded all 40 head. Silas helped her hold them. Dutch kept the fire hot. Father Miguel recorded each one in the registry. The crowd watched in silence, broken only by the sizzle of iron on hide and the occasional bawl of cattle. When the last one was done, Mari straightened, looked at Whitmore. He met her eyes, and in his face she saw something she'd never expected to see there. Fear. Whitmore left without another word, just mounted his horse and rode toward his ranch, alone now, his hired guns gone. His deputy turned witness against him. The crowd watched him go, watched his back shrink into the distance like the power he'd wielded was made of nothing but morning mist burning off in sunlight. It's not over, Dutch said quietly. Man like that doesn't quit. No, Father Miguel agreed. But it's begun. That's what matters. The Mexican families approached Mari first, hesitant, like people who'd forgotten what hope looked like. An old woman took Mari's hands, the ones still bandaged from barbed wire, and spoke in rapid Spanish. Too fast for Mari to catch all of it, but she understood enough. Thank you, gracias, for standing, for fighting. My family's land is in there too, the woman said, switching to English. The Martinez grant, 1771. Whitmore took it in 75, said we had no papers, but we did, same as you, just in Spanish, just old. Then we'll get it back, Mari said, all of it, every family in that ledger. The woman's eyes filled. She kissed Mari's cheek and moved away, crossing herself. More came forward, shared their stories, the Chen family, their river property taken in 76, the Gutierrez family, their grazing land seized in 77, the Torres family, split up when they couldn't pay Whitmore's sudden taxes on land they'd held for 3 generations. Each story carved deeper into Mari's understanding of what Whitmore had built. Not a ranch empire, a graveyard of families, a map of erasure. Silas stood apart, watching. Mari caught his eye, saw something in his face she couldn't name. Not regret exactly, something quieter, sadder. She excused herself and walked to where he stood by the now cold branding fire. "You gave up everything," she said. "No, I gave back everything. Different thing." "Silas, I built that house with my own hands after I buried my wife. 10 years ago, come September. Thought if I built something permanent, something solid, I could make the pain permanent and solid too. Keep it contained in those walls where I could manage it." He looked at the cattle, bearing the MC mark. "Didn't work. Pain doesn't stay contained. Just grows to fill whatever space you give it." "What will you do now?" "Figure I'll ask if you need a ranch hand. I'm pretty good with cattle, know the land, work cheap." Mari smiled despite everything. "That so?" "Yes, ma'am. References available upon request." "I'll consider it." She grew serious. "But I mean it, Silas. You don't have to—" "I know. That's why I'm doing it." He touched the brim of his hat. "Besides, someone's got to teach you how to run cattle. You're decent with a branding iron now, but you don't know the first thing about calving season or managing grazing, rotation, or—" A commotion by the church cut him off. Father Miguel had gone inside to lock the registry in the church vault, but now he emerged quickly, another man with him. Young, maybe 25, wearing travel-stained clothes and carrying a rifle. His face was Mari's face, 15 years younger and shaped by harder miles. "Diego," Mari breathed. Her brother crossed the square in long strides. She met him halfway. They collided in an embrace that hurt her ribs and made her bandaged wrists scream, and she didn't care. "I got Father Miguel's letter," Diego said in Spanish, then switched to English. "Rode 3 days from Chihuahua. Thought I'd be too late. Thought you'd be—" His voice broke. "I'm alive. I'm here. We did it, Diego. We got it back. Papa's land. Papa's land. Mama's garden, the whole 640 acres, all of it." Diego pulled back, looked at her face, saw the bruises, the cuts, the bandages. His expression went dark. "Who?" "Whitmore's men. But it's handled." "Handled how?" "The law, the real law, Spanish law. We transferred it back using the old ceremony. Father Miguel witnessed it. The whole town witnessed it." Diego looked past her to Silas, who'd kept his distance. "And him? He's the one who made it possible. Gave up his claim so I could reclaim ours." "Why would he do that?" Mari thought about the question. About Silas pulling her inside his house despite the danger. About him teaching her to use the iron. About him standing before the whole town and choosing principle over property. "Because he's a good man," she said simply, "and there aren't many of those left." Diego studied Silas for a long moment, then nodded once, the kind of nod men give when words aren't necessary. Silas returned it. Father Miguel emerged from the church again, this time carrying 3 sealed envelopes. Copies of the registry pages, the witness signatures, and excerpts from Dutch's ledger. One goes to Santa Fe, one to the territorial governor, one to the newspaper in Denver. They leave on the noon stage. "Will it be enough?" Mari asked. "To get Whitmore arrested? Probably not immediately. He's got friends, money, lawyers, but to make him vulnerable, to give other families the courage to file their own claims, yes. This is how empires fall, not in one blow, but in 53 small cuts, each one witnessed, each one recorded." Dutch approached with his sons. "We're heading to the land office. Gonna make sure those records stay accessible. Public. Anyone wants to see their deed, check a signature, compare dates. They got that right now." "Whitmore won't like that," Silas said. "Don't much care what Whitmore likes anymore." Dutch grinned. "Man wants his ledger back. He can ask a judge for it. In public, with questions." The crowd was dispersing now, but slowly. People lingered, talking in groups, planning. Mari heard the word lawyer repeated, heard file a claim, and territorial court, and my family's land. Something had shifted, not just legally, but in the air itself. Fear had been the currency of this valley for years. Now something else was trading, anger, yes, but also hope, the dangerous kind, the kind that made people stop accepting what they'd been told was inevitable. The schoolteacher approached Mari. "Miss Cordero, I want to help. I can write letters, file paperwork. I know the legal language. I want to help the families get their land back." "Yeah, that could cost you your position. My position pays $40 a month and requires me to pretend I don't see injustice. I'm tired of pretending." By noon, 17 families had approached Father Miguel about researching their claims. By early afternoon, Dutch had organized 3 men to guard the land office in shifts. By evening, word had spread to neighboring valleys, other families, other lost lands, other forged deeds. Mari stood at the edge of her reclaimed property as the sun began its descent. The 40 cattle grazed peacefully, the MC mark fresh on their hides. Silas was repairing the poisoned well, said he could make it clean again with enough work. Diego was walking the property line, relearning land he'd fled years ago. She touched the silver cross at her throat, thought of Silas's wife, who'd worn it every day of their marriage, thought of her own mother, who'd died of grief when this land was stolen, thought of all the women who'd held on when holding on seemed impossible. The leather pouch was still with Whitmore, the sourdough starter, the original grant, but Father Miguel had the registry, the town had the ledger, and Mari had something more valuable than documents. She had witnesses, she had daylight, she had truth that 53 families could testify to. She had her name back. "Mari," Silas called from the well, "water's running clear. Want to test it?" She walked to him, Diego following. The 3 of them watched as Silas drew up a bucket. The water was clean, cold, pure. He dipped the MC-marked branding iron into it, let the metal cool, then handed it to Mari. "Your family's mark," he said. "On your family's land. Way it should have been all along." Mari held the iron, felt its weight, felt the weight of every Cordero who'd held it before her and everyone who'd died defending what it represented. "Not just my family's anymore," she said quietly. She looked at Silas, at Diego, at Father Miguel approaching with the evening's mail. "Families are who stand with you, who fight for you, who give up everything so you can have something." Silas met her eyes. Something passed between them. Not romance, not yet, but recognition, partnership, the beginning of chosen family. "Well then," he said, "guess we better get to work. Land this size doesn't run itself." Diego laughed. "You hear that, Mari? He's already putting you to work on your own property." "Our property," she corrected. "All of us. That's how it works now." The sun touched the horizon, set the valley ablaze in gold and crimson. Somewhere in the distance, smoke still rose from someone's property. Whitmore's probably, burning evidence or just burning with rage. Let him burn. Mari had water, she had land, she had family, she had won. The territorial marshal arrived 6 days later. Came with 3 deputies and a stack of warrants thick as a Bible. Garrett Whitmore was arrested at his ranch while eating breakfast, charged with 53 counts of fraud, forgery, and conspiracy to commit theft. Judge Morrison resigned the same day rather than face investigation. The trial was set for October in Santa Fe. Mari heard about it from Dutch, who rode out to tell her personally. She was in the garden behind the house, her house now, legally and finally, planting vegetables from seed Diego had brought from Mexico. Silas was building a new chicken coop. Diego was repairing the barn roof. They'd all moved in together, the 3 of them, and nobody in town said a word about propriety because propriety seemed less important than survival these days. "Whitmore tried to run," Dutch said, dismounting. "Made it as far as the county line before the marshal caught up. Had $3,000 in his saddlebags. Blood money, every cent of it." "Will he hang?" Diego asked from the roof. "Probably not. Rich men rarely do. But he'll see prison. 5 years minimum," the marshal said. "Maybe 10. Dutch removed his hat, wiped sweat from his forehead. "That ledger you stole turned out to be even worse than we thought. Wasn't just deed fraud. Whitmore was running a whole operation, buying judges, paying surveyors to move property lines, hiring men to intimidate families into selling. Goes back 12 years. "How many families total?" Mari asked. 71 that they've found so far, 53 with forged deeds, 18 more with coerced sales, covers 3 counties. You standing up to him, it opened the floodgates. Folks who'd been too scared to talk are talking now. Mari sat back on her heels, dirt on her hands, the afternoon sun, warm on her shoulders. 71 families, each one with a story like hers, each one carrying loss and rage and the quiet desperation of people who'd been told the law didn't protect them anymore. Father Miguel's organizing a meeting, Dutch continued, next Sunday after service, for all the families who lost land, says we need to file claims together, present a united case, strengthen numbers. We'll be there, Silas said. He'd come around from the coop, hammer in hand, whatever they need. After Dutch left, they worked in companionable silence. This had become their rhythm, morning chores, afternoon repairs, evening meals around the table that now seated 3 instead of 1. They didn't talk much about the future, beyond next week's work, next month's cattle drive. But it was there between them, unspoken but understood. This arrangement was becoming permanent. That evening, Father Miguel rode out with news of his own. The territorial governor had issued an order. All land deeds in the 3 affected counties would be reviewed. Any signed by J. Thatcher after his death would be voided. Families with documented Spanish grants could file for restoration. The process would take months, maybe years, but it was happening. More than that, Father Miguel said, accepting the coffee Mari offered. The governor wants to meet you specifically, says what you did, standing up publicly, forcing the issue into daylight. That's what broke this open. He wants to hear your story firsthand. When? Mari asked. Month from now, Santa Fe, during Whitmore's preliminary hearing. The priest smiled. You'll testify, Mari. Your story becomes part of the official record, part of history. After he left, Mari walked out to where her father's grave was, or where it would be once she had money for a proper stone. For now, just a wooden cross Diego had carved, planted in the ground at the edge of the property where Papa had died defending it. Silas found her there as twilight settled. Thinking about him? He asked. Thinking about all of them. Papa, Mama, my brothers, everyone who died so I could stand here. She touched the cross at her throat, his wife's, now hers. Your wife, too. Elizabeth, right? Father Miguel told me her name. Elizabeth Marie died bringing our daughter into the world. Baby didn't make it either. His voice was quiet, steady. 10 years I blamed myself. Thought if I'd gotten the doctor faster, if I'd had more money for better care, if I'd done anything different, it wasn't your fault. I know that now. Took meeting you to understand it, but I know. He looked at her. Sometimes we survive when others don't. Doesn't mean we failed them, just means we got more work to do. What work? Living, fighting, building something that honors what they stood for. He gestured to the house, the land, the cattle grazing in the distance. This place, it's not just yours anymore, Mari. It's all of ours, mine and Diego's, and every family that signs Father Miguel's petition. We're building something bigger than property. We're building proof that theft doesn't win, not forever. Diego called from the house. Dinner was ready. They walked back together through the gathering dark, through land that smelled of earth and mesquite and the rain that might come if they were lucky. Inside, the table was set for 3. Diego had cooked. Beans and rice and fresh tortillas from the sourdough starter Father Miguel had recovered from Whitmore's office. 40 years old and still rising, still feeding, still surviving. They ate together as full night fell, made plans for tomorrow's work, argued about whether to plant corn or wheat in the north field, laughed at Diego's story about the barn cat who'd adopted him. Later, after Diego went to bed in the room that had been empty for years, Mari and Silas sat on the porch, the stars pressed down, bright and endless. You ever regret it? Mari asked, giving up the land. Silas was quiet for a long moment, then, every morning I wake up and remember I own nothing, and every morning I realize I'm richer than I've ever been. How's that? Because I can look at myself in the mirror, because I got family again, because I chose right over easy, and that choice gave me back something I thought I'd lost forever. What's that? A reason to be alive? Out in New Mexico territory, the sun don't forgive and the dust don't forget. But sometimes, just sometimes, a person stands up when standing up seems impossible, and the whole world shifts on that single choice. Mari Cordero got her land back, all 640 acres of it, got her family's name restored, got her brother home from Mexico, and a partnership with a giant of a man who understood that owning something means less than earning the right to stand on it. Silas Drummond gave up 6 years of building and $800 he'd never see again. Some folks called it foolish. Some called it noble. He called it arithmetic. You can't build a house on stolen ground and expect it to stand. In exchange for what he gave away, he got something he'd stopped believing existed: family. Not blood family, but the kind that chooses you anyway. The kind that sits around your table and argues about planting seasons and laughs at stories about barn cats and makes coffee too strong every morning. Diego Cordero came back from 3 years of running, found his sister alive, his family's land reclaimed, and work that meant something beyond survival. Planted his mother's garden from seed, learned to brand cattle with his father's iron, stopped looking over his shoulder for the first time since he'd fled. Garrett Whitmore got 7 years in the territorial prison. The judge in Santa Fe wasn't one he owned. 71 families filed claims based on Mari's case. 43 of them won. The others are still fighting. These things take time. The MC brand burns clean on 53 head of cattle now. New calves born that winter, spring bringing renewal like the land remembered its promises. Mari's grandmother's sourdough starter feeds the valley again. She bakes bread every Sunday after church, enough for anyone who needs it. Some things can't be killed, no matter how hard you try. Father Miguel keeps the mission registry up to date now. Records every birth, every marriage, every property transfer. Says history matters most when someone's trying to erase it. The ledger Dutch stole sits in the territorial archives in Santa Fe, evidence for trials that'll run for years. The house that Silas built for 2 and lived in alone now holds 3. 4 when the schoolteacher visits to help Diego with his reading. 5 when Dutch's youngest comes to learn blacksmithing from Silas, who's taken up the trade again in his spare time. It's loud now, full, the kind of full that means life is being lived instead of endured. Mari still wears the silver cross, still carries the straightened branding iron, still remembers the feel of barbed wire and the taste of blood and the 3 miles she crawled to reach a door that might not open. But mostly she remembers this: the sound of a brand sizzling into hide, the smell of mesquite smoke, the weight of 53 signatures, the look on Whitmore's face when he realized his empire was built on sand and the tide was coming in. Sometimes the story ends the way it should, not with revenge, but with restoration, not with victory, but with witness. The land remembers its people. And sometimes, if they fight hard enough, the people get to come home. By God's mercy and the dust's long memory, justice finds its way.